Hi and welcome to Cherry Pie Math. This video is going to go over the three measures of center that we mainly use in statistics, especially in basic statistics, I guess. So let's say that a class scored 87% average on a recent test. So I want you to think about what that means. Like you've probably heard that before, like, oh, this class got 87% average, awesome. What does that mean though? Like, why is that important? What does that tell us? So think about that in the back of your brain while we're going through this. And so when we collect data, we need to analyze and interpret it. So otherwise we have a lot of raw data. And honestly, like if you have, let's say you wanted to find the average height, or you wanted to find the height of Americans, for example, if I just gave you, like 30 million different points of data, 30 million different heights, that tells you nothing. We need some way to be able to organize that information. So a common way to determine what a data set tells us are measures of center. And there's three different measures of center that we mainly use. The first one is called the mean or the average, and everyone always makes the jokes about, oh, the mean is so mean, I mean, if that helps you remember it, then whatever. So the mean or the average kind of represents two different ways of thinking, I guess. So I'm going to kind of put a bar here. The way that I thought about it and the way that mathematically makes sense to me is that it represents the amount each person, or each data point, I guess, each data point would have if they all got the same amount. And the reason I think about this is because the way you calculate the mean, and this is something you do need to know, you'll see this on the ACT a lot as well, or the SAT. The way to calculate the mean is, so mean is equal to everything added together. Everything added divided, remember that's divided. So everything added together divided by the number of points. So basically, like in the test example, you added together all of the different test scores from like the lowest one to the highest one, and then you divided it by the number of students, and then it's basically saying this is how much each student would have received if everyone got the same score. Obviously, not everyone has the same score. That's why it's called a measure of center, is it's just a generalization of what would be something to expect from everybody. The other way you might think about this measure of center is the mean is kind of like the balancing point. And again, going back to the way we calculate it, where we add everything together and then we divide it by the number of points, is it's basically showing how much is going to be on each side. This is what you need to memorize. Honestly, there's not really a better way to tell you how to do that. Like if you understand like this, for example, it will help you understand where the math is coming from. But this is something you need to memorize for the rest of your life. You'll probably forget it in like a year, and I get that. It happens to the best of us, happened to me. But this is something you need to remember, especially as you head into getting ready for high school and getting ready for college, because this is something that most standardized tests expect you to have down pat. So that's item number one, is the mean. Item number two, the second type, is called the median, or the middle. And this is really just you arrange data least to greatest. And then you literally find the middle. And that's what it is. So this one is really good because it shows you exactly what's in the middle. It has its pros and cons. A pro is that it's not as mathematically, what am I trying to say? Like with the average, like let's say you have two items that are super far away, it's going to mess up your math. But with the median, you just cross it out and you kind of ignore it anyway. So that's really good about the median, is it ignores things that will totally skew your data. The con is that you know, if you do it by hand, it takes forever to do. And you don't get to do as many cool mathy things with it. And I'm not going to go into the amount of mathy things you can do with the mean. Really, all you need to know from this video is the 3 kinds. So we have the mean, which is the average, where you add everything together and you divide by the number of points. We have the median, which is where you do it least to greatest and you find whatever's in the middle. Oh, if there's 2 things in the middle, if 2 things in the middle, you find the average of the 2. Which is basically the middle of the 2 of them. So like you would do like A plus B divided by 2. And that would just tell you what is in the middle of those 2 numbers that are in the middle. And like, I know I'm going through this kind of fast, so make sure you pause it, go back, write it down. And if you don't understand, just wait for us to do the examples at the end and it will make a lot more sense. The mode is the 3rd kind of center. This is the least used one mathematically, but the most used one when you're using categorical data, which is like data that's not a number. So for example, when you're taking a vote of like who you want for president, that would be a mode thing, because the mode, it represents the thing that people vote for the most. You see it less with numbers, but you'll see it often with things that aren't numbers. So it really is just that there can be 0, 1, or more than 2 modes, or 2 or more modes, I guess. You have to write them all down. So it's anything that appears the most. So let's do some examples and hopefully that will make a little bit more sense. Just so you know, we will most often use the mean because you can do more mathy things with it. Later in statistics, you're going to be using something called standard deviation. And it's just, it's cool to do that mathy things, but it doesn't mean we don't use the others. We'll often use the median, especially if we have data that's kind of all over the place, just so we can see exactly what's in the middle. And we'll use the mode if it's categorical, but most of the time we will use the mean. Okay, so let's practice. Let's say we have all these shoe sizes. Oh my goodness, there's so many of them, right? So remember, the mean is going to be adding it all together and divide by the number of points. And I should have done this before. I did not. So I'm going to pause the video here, or I'm going to do this really fast, and you can kind of follow along and maybe pause the video and try it yourself. Okay, so I added all of them together and I got 251.5, and then I had 29 different data points. So all I have to do is divide those and I get 8.67. As you've probably noticed, 8.67 is not one of the options that are even here, but it does represent how much each person, how big each shoe size would be if everyone had the same shoe size. That's basically what the mean is telling us. Or it would represent kind of like if I put this all on a board, all these numbers, and then here was 8.67, that would balance it out. That's what it's saying. So that's how you would do the mean. You add it all together, you divide by the number of points. The median is a lot of fun because you basically just go whoop, whoop, and then you just keep going. I usually alternate because it just keeps it so that I move my hand less, I guess. And you just keep going. You just make sure you keep track of the pairs that you're doing, I guess. Okay, my median is 9. That's all it was. You just have to make sure you cross out on both sides one at a time and then find whatever's in the median. Let's say, for example, this isn't obviously not mathematically correct, but let's say you cross it all out and you got 8 and 9 together. In the middle, what you would do is you would do 8 plus 9 and divide that by 2, so 17 divided by 2, which is 8.5, right? That's if you had 2 things in the middle, but it worked out that we don't have to worry about that in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and erase that, and then we'll do the mode. The mode is, remember again, what occurs the most amount of time. So looking at it, we had, let's see, we had 3 7s, Then we had 5 nines, 6 nines. No, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we had 6 different nines there. And that looks like it appears the most. So the mode would be 9. Let's say that instead I had like, I don't know, I'm just going to make some numbers like that. Then my mode would be 2 and 3 because they both appear the same amount of times. Let's say I only had like this. Then I would have no mode because none of these numbers appears more than once. All of them appear the same amount of times, so I wouldn't have any mode. Or you could actually say that each of them are a mode, although that's pretty useless. Anyway, I hope that helps you understand a little bit more about how you find measures of center. And that you remember that the mean, median, and mode are the most important ways of finding those measures of center, and that's what you'll be tested on in the future. Anyway, good luck!